All right. Welcome, everyone. My name is Heather Goff, and I'm going to be talking today about how we implemented the Skill Belts program at Chase. So give a little bit of background about the blueprint, how we got started, where we are now, some lessons learned, and then show you some of the Grandmaster dashboards that we've had come out of the program. So I'm going to start with who I am. Like I said, I am Heather Goff. I have been with Chase for 14 years now. I started in a position that now actually no longer even exists. It was so low and it was so long ago, they don't even have this position anymore. And I worked my way up, learning new skills as I went. And in 2014, my manager wanted a really cool map, so he bought me Tableau. Not knowing that that was not the purpose of Tableau, but that is how I ended up using Tableau and got started from there. And I joined the Tableau COE in February of 2017, and just in December of last year, I was certified as a desktop associate. So that's my Chase story. Outside of Chase, I am a mom. That is my 5-year-old. And underneath that, it says I am a marathoner. This was not at a marathon. This was at a 4-miler, I think. And she was running a little kids race. It was like a quarter-mile dash. So we like to run together. And I actually just completed the Chicago Marathon. It was my first world major. I'm in the lottery for 2 more for next year. Wish me luck. Thank you. And then I read a ton. Even though I have a 5-year-old, I do find the time to read. I love Florida. So on here it says I'm a beach bum, so I read a lot of Florida local writers. But I just want to include, Florida was my dream spot. That's where I wanted to retire. And then I went to Maui. And so now this is my dream retirement spot. So if anybody would like to contribute to the Heather Retires to Maui Fund, we can talk after. All right. So I was going to give a little bit of a history on the blueprint, but Michael Holcomb, who is our customer success manager, has joined us today, and he knows so much more about this than I can even begin to speak.
Hello. Testing. Hey, everybody. I used to live on Kauai, and I keep telling her that Maui is not. Testing. I have problems hearing, so I'm sensitive to the fact that if I stand up here and yell, there are inevitably people in the audience that are trying to read my lips. So yeah, Kauai is actually a better island to live on. When I gave this talk last year, it was the last day of TC, it was raining, 24 people showed up, if that. So I'm really excited to see that everybody here is interested in skill belts. There's probably 250 people in the room. That's a lot. It's probably the speaker.
Thank you.
That's probably what it is. So this slide here, this is really an important fact. Nobody's nailed it with rolling out analytics. Collectively, all of us in the room are doing pieces of this correctly. And that's why the community aspect of this is so important. But McKinsey did a study. They surveyed 1,000 companies, over $1 billion in revenue, 13 sectors, 12 geographies. 92% were failing to roll out analytics at scale. That's an amazing number. So the question really is then, what are the 8% doing that are getting it right? The 8% they recognize that democratization of data is key. They recognize that making data a part of every conversation is important. And that means when your senior executive is in the room, they're going to say, pull up your Tableau dashboard. Right? It means prioritizing facts over intuition. But most importantly, it's about transformation. We're trying to transform a company to a data-driven entity. And that's really hard. There's a lot of different things we have to hit on. So what we did at Tableau is we came up with this program called the Blueprint. Agility is pretty easy, right? That's rolling out your software, setting up an agile deployment. Proficiency is pretty much what it says, is proficiency with the product. So visual best practices, analytical best practices, measurement of what users are doing. And then the last piece is often the most forgotten piece. It's probably one of the most important pieces, which is an element around community, building around a community that can impact this transformational change. This is the blueprint. You start over at the left with your analytics strategy. This is really doing a tremendous amount of due diligence around what you're trying to do and then communicating that strategy out. Governance layers on top of that, that's really identifying your controls, your roles, and your repeatable processes. Now, don't think of governance as a bad thing, because it's really not. Think about it, in Seattle they have Lime Bike, right? And you can leave a Lime Bike anywhere, absolutely anywhere. In New York, we have city bikes, which have docking stations. Now in Seattle, you'll find them in trees, and you'll find them in lakes, and you'll find them all over the place. In New York, you find them at a docking station. So just think of governance as a healthy way to create confidence around a system and provide guardrails to allow your users to safely explore their data. And then you go into the next section, which is deployment, right? So you have deployment, education, and communication. This is literally setting up your software, getting an education program out there, and then starting the initial aspects of building a community, and then the next sections are all about evolve, right? So then that's monitoring, which is your hardware and your software, measuring what your users are doing, and then starting to do some engagement activities. And then lastly, you want to start to maintenance. That's upgrading, that's looking what your server's doing, that's what are the new features that you want to roll out. Then you go to analytics best practices, which is now really about templates, visual best practices, how to evolve that program. And then lastly is support, which is a critical element of your community, right? You want your community to support itself. What we're going to talk about today is that education component. And we're going to talk specifically about the skill belts. And what we did with our skill belts program is we looked at gamification. Like if you pull out your Delta app and you look at it, that's a leaderboard. Leaderboards are very powerful. So what we try to do is take the elements of game mechanics and look at how that resonates against human behavior. It's really extrinsic and intrinsic trade-offs. And we try to bake that into the program. We used a framework from Hunter and Warbeck. It's this 6D framework, so you start at the top and you work your way down. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail about this because I did a talk last year about that. And so you can see, here's the link last year. But what we did is, this is a great framework, by the way. It's really easy reading. These are the pioneers of the program. And so I showed this to Heather. I said, I think we should roll this out at your bank. And she said, you know, this is a great idea. Because we play against, not only is it the gamification, but we look at the roles that people play. We look at the different player types, right? Whether you're an explorer, whether you're a socializer, or whether you're a budding executive, right? Those tend to be the killer player types. So just kidding. But we looked at all these types of players and said, how do we design content around those people, right? So we put elements of like community volunteerism within the program, because that's going to appeal to people that like to socialize. And we looked at different types of fun, hard fun, easy fun, casual fun, again, because we're trying to resonate hooks within people that appeal to them emotionally and who they are. As we baked all these things together, we created some leaderboards and some badges and some systems, and before you know it, we had a gamified education program. And so I'm going to stop there because I think what Heather has done is absolutely amazing. They've had somewhere of around 1,000, 1,500 people go through your program. Is that right?
Through the first 2 levels, yes.
Isn't that amazing? Talk about how you create quality and quantity of skilled analysts. I can't think of a better way. I'm really excited to see you all here, and I'll leave it with you. You don't need this.
Thank you, Michael. All right, so as Michael said, he gave us this program. He brought it to us in July of last year. And our first question was, how much does it cost? And as soon as he said free, we're like, we'll take it. We're going to make it our own. And the first thing we did was change the name. Skill belts. It's okay, no offense. But we wanted to make it seem fun and exciting and exclusive So we branded it the Tableau Academy. And yes, we did steal that name from the Alteryx Academy, but it's in Chase, so it's our Tableau Academy. And then when we got it, there were different levels. There was beginner 1, 2, and 3, intermediate, advanced, and expert. And we said, okay, these are fine, but again, we're fun people. We want to make this really fun for our users, and we ran with the Jedi theme of Tableau, and so we renamed all of the levels after the Order of the Jedi. So I will not be referring to any of the levels as beginner, intermediate, and so on. We have Youngling, we have Padawan, we have Jedi Knights, Jedi Masters, and Jedi Grandmasters. Those are the experts. That's the level your users should want to get to. So I went through all of the classes. I didn't take every single one, but I did click on every link just to make sure that, that all of the links worked and that you could get to it from inside of our lovely firewalls at Chase. Many of the things we cannot get to because they're blocked. A lot of the content is on YouTube, which we can't access. So I just made a note in all of the classes that if you couldn't get to it from inside Chase, you have to use a personal device. And so far, we haven't had any person who's had a problem with using their own phone or home computer to access any of the classes. Now, we didn't know how this was going to go. This was brand new information. We've never run a program like this before at Chase. And we wanted to do something a little bit different as well. Michael suggested putting it on our Learning Center and opening it up to anybody who wants to take it. We decided to go with a boot camp style training. We're going to have 13 weeks. We're going to have an application process. We're going to limit the number of people who go through just so we could have a pilot, see how it goes. At the same time we were rolling this out, there was a Java class that was going, excuse me. And in that Java class, it was full-time. So 7 people were chosen to go to school all day, every day for 13 weeks. We said, we can do this, but we'll only make it half-time. It's 4 hours a day, 13 weeks to get through all of this information. So we sent out an email. We had 252 applicants. And we just asked them basic information. What's your name, your email? Did you ask your manager permission? What's your skill level? Things like that. And again, brand new, didn't know if we needed all beginners, if we needed some experts in there as well. So we just tried it out. I used Tableau to connect to SharePoint where we had our application, did a random calculation, did a little filter work here to get 3 equal lists. And after contacting people and getting with their managers, things like that, we had 67 participants. Part of the academy is that you have to, excuse me, part of the academy is that you have to show off your work. You have to show that you learned the skills taught in that lesson. So we had to have proctors. There were only 6 of us in the COE, so not enough people to proctor 67 participants. So we reached out to our Tableau community, the people that we knew to be experts in Tableau, and we had 13 say yes. And I actually am lucky enough to have 2 of the proctors in the room with me today. So thank you guys. They've been a huge help for us, and they've provided invaluable insights for our participants going through the academy. And I just threw a picture up here of what our original application looked like. It was very simple, very basic information. So this is how we ended the pilot. We had 67 start. We had 45 make it through Youngling 1, and as you can see, as it went to the higher levels, the numbers dropped. That was a little disappointing to see at the beginning, but then I realized not every single person who goes through the academy needs to make it all the way to the end. We also learned that 13 weeks is not enough time, especially at the end of the year. There's lots of processes going on. So we extended it out. We gave them another, we gave them another month to work through the academy. And since we were giving them another month, we sweetened it a little bit by giving them incentives. You make it all the way to Grandmaster, you're gonna get some really cool Tableau swag. Didn't have any idea what that was gonna be yet, but I baited them, I gave them the carrot, I said, if you can make it all the way to Grandmaster, you're gonna get something really cool. And I reached out to Michael and said, please give me free stuff. So he sent me gifts so that I could share with the Academy participants. And it worked out that I had just enough presents to give the 5 Grandmasters a sweatshirt. I gave the 11 Jedi Masters water bottles, and everyone else got a notebook. And they were thrilled. So it doesn't have to be a big gift, it just has to be a gift. People love free stuff, and they will work really hard to get free stuff. They didn't even know what it was gonna be. They just knew they wanted it. So one of the other lessons that we learned, besides that 13 weeks was not enough time, is that in the show off your skills, the original ones were kind of pre-written. They had, the first one was a scenario that's on online help from Tableau, and it told them exactly what dashboard to create. That was the Padawan, show off your skills. So we saw how many people made it through. 26 of the same exact dashboard. It was extremely boring as a proctor to see the same dashboard 26 times. And it was also very frustrating because everyone said the exact same thing. And then the next one, they were given a dashboard, and then they had to take that and put it into a story. So we saw 18 of the same dashboard over and over again. By the time we got to the master level, and this is part of the reason the number dropped significantly, no one had really learned how to implement what they were learning in the academy and apply it to their work. They hadn't received that feedback from us. So for the next class, we decided, let's take out the pre-written things. Everybody's gonna start from scratch. They're gonna have to figure out how to do it on their own, and that way we can start providing them valuable feedback from the very beginning. And I already touched on this, not everybody's gonna make it through. And it's really okay. You don't have to have 5,000 Jedi Grandmasters. Not everybody needs to be that level. Some people only need to make it to that Padawan or that Jedi Knight level in order to do their job. And you appreciate them where they are because they're gonna take that information and they're gonna take what they've learned and they're gonna share it with the people that they work with and others in the community. So where we are now. We had our, we started the 1Q19 Tableau Academy with those changes in place. And we had, let's see, 50 participants for this one. We had 18 proctors. We took the 5 Grandmasters from the pilot. We added them to our proctor list. So we started getting, gaining more traction, have more people, helps us out as a COE, and eventually we'll have enough people where we can expand this out to even more. And then we added in those new show off your skills. So we were able to see very early where people were going wrong and how they were using Tableau. If they were giving us a bunch of tables, if they were doing horrendous things with color, we could talk to them about it from the very beginning. And then our next class, we started in May. We opened it up to 75 participants. And these last 2, we asked for not only their manager to give them permission, but their manager to write a letter of recommendation. That told me that as a manager, they bought into the program, they had faith that their person could make it through, and that they would give them the support and the time that they needed to go through the class. Now, 2Q, we only had 1 make it to Grandmaster, but again, it's okay. We had someone who tried multiple times to get to Grandmaster. They just weren't there yet. And you have to be okay with that, and you have to explain to them why they aren't there yet. They took all the classes, they just didn't present it at that level yet. They hadn't quite figured out how to make it work for them. And we added even more proctors, so instead of just doing the Grandmasters, since we only had 3 come out of that first quarter, took the masters as well so that they could proctor the lower levels. We had volunteers, people heard about the program, they wanted to help out. So we were able to get 27 proctors, which is why we were able to open our second academy of 19 up to 75 participants. And we added new classes. So one of the things that we saw in the first 2 is that people's dashboards were a little crazy, nothing really lined up, not using best practices. So we would ask people, why aren't you using containers? And a lot of times the response was, I didn't know containers was a thing. So I went back and I looked at the materials, and we did not cover containers at all. So added containers, or a couple classes on containers, added classes on Viz and Tooltip. Everything lined up, it was great. Will gave me the classes for containers. That's why he's making faces at me right now. So we gave them the information that they needed based on the version that we were using and things that we saw as they were going through. And then our current class was a much smaller class. We changed some things around. We opened up the Youngling and the Padawan level to everyone. We used that as a prerequisite to get into this academy, and only 36 of the 106 that applied had met the criteria. They had a letter of recommendation for their manager, and they completed the first 2 levels on their own. This picture was taken early last week, so we've had 16 make it through Jedi Knight, and we have 1 Grandmaster. I didn't look this morning, but I think we have a couple more Masters, and I know we have at least 1 more Jedi Knight. We are up to 39 proctors. So as long as we keep adding people to help us with the proctoring, we can keep adding people into the academy. Since we opened up the Youngling and the Padawan, as I shared with Michael, we've had about 1,500 people go through. So all of those people are eligible to get into the academy because they've already taken the prerequisites. And the more proctors that we have, the more people we can allow in. And we constantly are being asked, when's the next academy going to be? How do I get in? Tell me what to do. So I let people know the application will be open in January. We'll run it 3 times a year. And every time we're going to keep adding more and more people. So don't worry, I'll let you know. And we've had a good response. So every application we've had at least 100 people. The last one was at 106. The previous ones were at 150 or more. And then we also, before this class came out, we upgraded to 2019.1. So we added even more new classes. So we added classes on set actions. So as we upgrade the version of Tableau that we're using in the firm, we're not upgrading the classes, we're adding new classes to cover all of that. We also added in an accessibility merit badge. And Catherine, she's Catherine, she's like Cher, I've heard. She's just first name Catherine because I can't say her last name. She's at TD. She created the accessibility merit badge, and it's amazing. It covers how to create dashboards for people with low vision and people with color blindness so that everyone can see your dashboards and interpret them the way that you want them to. And we had, we had a lot of people, as you saw from the previous ones, who didn't make it all the way to the end. So we opened it up in October, a Finish What You Started class. 105 participants from the previous classes are now going through, all trying to get to that Grandmaster. So what you can see here, some of the people that made it to Grandmaster are showing on here as not having reached Grandmaster. That's because we added new classes. So they're still Grandmasters. They're just not showing it on here until they take their class. And I just threw on this graphic here because this is something that we did that was pretty fun. Those lightsabers are how they track their progress. So this is somebody who made it all the way to Grandmaster, but they're showing as not complete in the 2 lower levels. So they were in this last class, and they were in a class 2 classes ago. So new classes were added to those lower levels. If they want to show their lightsabers as complete again, they just have to take a couple classes. They don't have to show off their skills again. But this is just a way for them to track how they're doing. Fun graphic, again, sticking with the Jedi theme. And something that I didn't touch on is that in what I showed were how people were going through and how many people were at each level, at the bottom of that, there's a list of all of their names. And part of the gamification is that they're very competitive. There's always going to be one person who wants to make it to the very end before anybody else. And if they see somebody else get a badge before them, they're going to work even harder to get to the next one first. So it's a competition, not because they want to be, that it requires that they get done first, but people really want to be the first one. So it really helps push them along so that they can compare where they are with other people. And then I have a demo here. Let me get out of this. So part of this, there we go. So part of the academy is that let me make this bigger, is that you have to show off your skills. And this was our very first Grandmaster. Her name is Ramia. She is based in India, and she created her Grandmaster dashboard during the elections in India. So she called it Namo's Twitterverse. And she had been using Tableau for 2 weeks prior to getting into the academy. Her very first viz ever was her Padawan level show off your skills. So she went from not having created anything to creating a really cool story here. So this is just a little bio page because she was sharing this with people in the States who had no idea really who Namo was. And then here's her viz. She pulled all this information down from Twitter, and this is not easy work. It's not you just connect to data and you get this spiral graph. That's not how it works. It takes a lot of math on the backside. And she did this from learning in the academy in 17 weeks. So we have here, each ring is a year, and each circle is a tweet. If it's pink, it's 1 tweet for that day. If it's blue, he tweeted multiple times that day. And then the size of the circle is how many times it was retweeted. So there's this information here. And this guy at the time was 67 years old. I think he's 68 now. And this is how many times a day, this was in 2015, how many times, or the hours of the day that he tweets. It's a 67-year-old man who's tweeting 24 hours a day. Again, this is not something that you can just connect to your data and create. There's a lot of things that you have to do on the backside in order to get this to work. And then finally, she shared, this is his hashtag usage. So she did create a word cloud. Not my favorite thing to use in Tableau, but she did a really good job of that. And this hashtag right here is the radio show, I believe, that he does, the radio program that he does. So it was the most tweeted hashtag. And if you click on it, you can see that it was tagged 241 times. And then at the bottom, it shows all of the tweets that had this hashtag. If you click on one of the smaller ones, this one was 22 times. I think there you go, this was 3 times. So she had this here, and then you've got just kind of a list of all of his hashtags over here on the side. So that's the first one. She was our very first Grandmaster, and we were so impressed with what she was able to do just in 17 weeks. Our next Grandmaster that I want to showcase, nope, that's the workbook. Here we go. So another very similar situation. This was Craig Hurd. He hadn't been using Tableau very long prior to joining the academy, and this was his dashboard. He took this information from GitHub and IMDb and gave us the Game of Thrones dashboard. So at the top here, you have the IMDb ratings for every single episode. You can see the synopsis if you hover over it. And if you click on, let's click on this episode here. These are the top screen times of the characters. You see how many love scenes there were, and I'm going to say love in quotes because it's not all love for these. And then the types of deaths. So if you hover over it, you can see there were 4 deaths in this episode, and underneath it shows how they died. And he also brought in this map and showed where they were. I know nothing about Game of Thrones, so I can't tell you anything about it, but it showed where they were during this episode. You can do the same thing looking at seasons. So again, here's the top characters for this season. You have the same, looks like this actually was love, so that one's all right. But again, you have the same information. And the first time he presented this to us, he didn't pass. His calculations didn't exactly work. If you clicked on a season, it would change the percentages in the bottom of the characters. So it wasn't exactly right. We gave him this feedback, he came back, and now he has a dashboard that works. This is actually out on Tableau Public if you want to check it out. Craig Hurd is his name. And just quickly, whoops, that one is a blank one, that won't show you anything. Here we go. So this is what the Academy looks like. We give them an introduction page, which, make this bigger here, that kind of gives them a little bit of background information about what the Jedi skills are all about, what the merit badges are, things like that. Just a place to go back to if they have any questions. Then they earn their Jedi skills. So it's just a storyboard. Each level, they walk through, the classes go, from top to bottom. You just scroll down. When you get to the bottom, you move on to the next one. And in the youngling level, there isn't a show off your skills section, because this really is just about visualizations. Why are visualizations important? Why should you use them? And the best practices around using them. You don't really start getting into Tableau and how to use it until the Padawan level. And you scroll down to the bottom. It's going to be a little slow here. And there are milestone events. So there is an exam. It's a written exam. The Padawan level is 131 questions. 90% of it is true, false. There's 5 multiple choice questions and 5 or 6 fill in the blank. So it seems a little daunting to see 131 questions, but it really doesn't take that long. And it covers everything that they learned in the Padawan level. And then there's the show off your skills. So we took the scenario, we use Superstore data, and we took the scenario from the first class and we said, okay, you work for this fictional company, your quarterly numbers came out, and your manager wants to know why are some products doing really well and why some products are failing. Create a dashboard. And we've been able to get a lot more feedback to our users using this method versus the original method of giving them exactly what to produce. And we've also set up a mentoring program, so proctors are there as mentors so that so the participants can ask them questions, get feedback before they even show off their skills. The only rule is that if you are a mentor, you can't also be their proctor. Little conflict of interest there. And then volunteerism. And that's really the biggest one, and that's what carries over once the academy is done. They have to spend time sharing what they've learned with other people. If they, in the Padawan level, they have to answer like 2 questions. They're not, they're at the very beginning level. They're not going to be out and solving all of the Tableau problems in the community. But they do have to answer at least 2 questions. At the Jedi Knight level, it goes up to 5 questions, or give a brief training to someone that you work with. And as the level goes up, so does the amount of time that they have to spend volunteering. So the Grandmasters become proctors for the lower levels. And for us, we have 2 merit badges, and this is the first book, this is the first workbook that we had. So we have finance, because I do work for JPMorgan Chase, so this is about finance and insurance. It's industry best practices, industry standards, kind of going through what competitors have done, and there are a couple classes in there about what we have done at Chase. And it has the same thing at the end. There's volunteerism and there's a show off your skills. And really at this point, they should be using their own work to show off what they've learned in that finance level. And then originally we did have Tableau Prep. We have since taken Tableau Prep merit badge out because we aren't using it in the firm. We have around 50-ish% of our users on virtual machines. So it didn't make sense to have a merit badge for a product that half of our users couldn't even use. So we took that out. We put in the accessibility merit badge. And a lot of our people who've gone through the class before in the finish what you've started, that's what they're coming back for, is that accessibility merit badge. They want to learn everything they can about transforming all of their dashboards to be accessible to everyone. And then the skills completed. And I don't think my data transferred over correctly because I don't have anybody's name at the bottom, but you can see at the top, this is how many people went through each level, and then we'd split it out by functional area just so they could see how many people are in similar areas, and they could go out and ask other people questions if they're in the same kind of business. And I don't know how I'm doing on time. All right, that is all that I have, and I wanted to leave time in case anybody had questions for me or Michael on the skill belts or blueprint or anything like that. So I think Michael has a mic if anybody has questions.